that, he shouldn't bother going ahead with it in those states because of the possible clash that might ensue. Do you think that's the way to go?
That is the way to go. And he who have ears here, we already have an issue of insecurity across the country. And the government, our securities are finding it difficult to be able to handle this. In the north, they are attacked by bandits. I don't even like calling them bandits. Attacked by terrorists. That is how we should be able to stand them in the north. Attacks in southwest, attacks in the agitation in southwest, and so many other problems. I don't think we should bring the issue of headers, grazing routes, and the rest of them in the mix, or else we're going to have serious problems. It has already been agreed that the way to go is the president himself also came and said that at one point. So why are the issue of this new route and no grazing? It is not as a great problem. In the Nigerian Constitution, the right to land belongs by the 1978 Land Use Act. The right to alienate land belongs to the governors. The governor of the state has the right to it, except for government land, federal government land, that's of their agency. Then in the local level, sub-land level, it belongs to the local level. So the president shouldn't just wake up, start trying to create a problem where there is none. For now, the way to do is that as the president has taken a position to support people on his own part of the country. And because I'm are they the only people into agriculture? I can still wake up today and say, okay, let me go to Benue or go to Katsina to take up land for my own crop. Will they allow that? That is part of what we're saying, that this current constitution as it is not working for us, and we need to do something about it. Until we're able to look at those out of our constitution that seems to tilt and give some level of resemblance, not allowing the state to be able to effectively function, we'll continue to have the same problem we're having now. Good enough, the governor of the challenge, and I just hope that some other governors will also do. Don't forget, to those states governors the southern governors understand the issue of open grazing and grazing. In fact, UK last week already, I think, they put in motion a position on that, trying to come up with that. So the South have taken a position on open grazing, and the time should do just overheat the politics. We stay so much on our table that we are back.
Okay,
I think that of the grazing routes and what I thought to be a very, very big one to handle now. Let's continue to see a way of addressing and making every Nigerian have a sense of belonging wherever they are, and not just making it feel that some people are just bigger and more within something than that.
Okay, Mr. Wandu, I think lastly we can take a story about a diplomatic role that is looming in the DRC, where officials allegedly harassed Nigerian envoys. And basically, this story is something that happened in 2020 in March, but it's just coming out now. It says that there was an attempt to set the house of the ambassador ablaze in the middle of the night. The suspect was arrested. He was handed over to the police. Also in August, the Nigerian embassy in the DRC was boggled by a man and by the police, actually. He was deployed to guard the place. And this news is coming just on the back of news that Nigerian diplomats were harassed in Indonesia.
Well, that is DRC. You are talking of Indonesia. Also forget that even within our neighborhood here, our embassy was invaded in Accra, Ghana, and buildings belonging to diplomats were demolished by Ghanaian authorities. So you remember that movie just few years or some few months back. Well, that is where we find it. And until we start doing like a true zone, where we'll be able to take a stand on issues like this. Once this happens, there's always dramatic ways of doing it. If you harass my people here, you know what happens to the international community? Just see America expel one Russia from America. What happens? You see Russia retaliating by either expelling 2 Americans or 3 immediately. That is diplomatic. That is diplomatic way. What that signal gives is that every time when you are thinking of harassing my country, our diplomats and this, you think twice. I think we shouldn't be getting ourselves in this kind of situation between now and then. every single. This is not the time. Don't have forget this. We had in South Africa some yes, several Nigerians were killed in those acts and the rest of them. At the end of it, what did we do? We just try to palliate the losses and the rest of them. I don't know whether compensation were paid so that those Nigerians have lost their life. I don't think so. So I think we should start living up to our responsibility as a nation that is independent, wherever and wherever they find themselves, we make sure that they're well protected. But in a situation where certain individuals can move to the embassy, moving into the embassy of Nigerian country is like walking into Arab. Because those embassies are the seat of Nigeria in that country, and by diplomatic constitution, nobody has the right to go to any embassy, any country. It costs a lot of work in the past. You cannot do that. If you have any issue with any department, you need to do is to report to the appropriate and the agencies of government within
True,
that country.
Mr. Nwandu, you really have, Mr. Nwandu, you really have described the the accurate processes to take if you have grievances with such individual. But that's where we have to leave it here. And we thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. All right, stay with us. We'll take a short break. When we come back, we're going just a little bit in history to the year 2012 to tell you of an incident in Norway that shocked the world. We'll be back.
This is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Booking November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Welcome back to The Breakfast, and now let's go back in history to the year 2012. His name became very popular on this day, but not for the very best reasons. His full name, Anders Behring Breivik. He was a 33-year-old who on this day committed one of the worst atrocities in Norway, killing 77 people. It started sometime around 3:25 p.m. on that day, bombing government buildings in a part of Oslo that led to about 8 lives being lost and close to 100 injured. And right after that, Breivik drove a couple of kilometers to a youth camp where he committed, of course, more of these atrocities, shooting 69 people dead on that day. I remember very, very clearly how this day turned out. A lot of people across the world were watching to see how this, incident was carried out. He apparently had gotten himself ammunitions, armed himself well enough to keep firing for more than an hour until he had killed about 69 people. Breivik was eventually sentenced to 21 years in prison, which sadly, well, I would say sadly, was the maximum sentence in Norway for crimes such as that. His defense, of course, was able to plead insanity, which didn't fly. But the 21-year sentence is only just, the start. It can also be extended if it is proven that he is still a threat to society. Some other thing, that was mentioned in the case of Anders Breivik was that he mentioned that he had planned this since since when he was 23, actually, since the year 2002, I believe. Yes, he had planned it for about 9 to 10 years before eventually carrying it out. He said he had started saving towards this day, buying ammunitions, had tried different ways to get ammunition, but some of them had failed, but eventually was able to get into some black market process where he was able to get the guns that he used in carrying out these atrocities on this day. He also said that he did it to save Norway from Muslim takeover and to punish the Norwegian government for its failure to protect the people of Norway. That's according to him. And one thing that, would always be a little confusing when Nigerians hear stories like this is when, people like this can still plead insanity and, will still be given an ear, at least will still be listened to in court in those countries. In Nigeria, when you commit a crime like this, a lot of people, there's no space, to have a conversation concerning, temporary insanity or anything like that. God help you that you even make it to the court. God help you that you even make it to the courtroom. A lot of times you don't even make it to the courtroom. But it was on this day that he was sentenced to 21 years in prison for the Norway massacre that killed 77 people. Once again, his name, Anders Bevnik, Bering Bevnik, that was his name on this day. That's what we have for you today in history. Stay with us. Our first major conversation for today, we are going to be talking about state allocations. The governor of Borno State, Samuel Otom, has stated that he would like to see states have an upward review of the percentage that they receive from the federal government. He says that he would like that states receive as much as 42% allocation, local government receive as much as 23%, and the government getting just about 35%, I believe, percent from the federation account. We're going to be talking about that after the short break with our guest, Nick Agule. Stay with us here on The Breakfast.
There has to be a decision point. The way your baby's presenting, we have to rush you in. And my partner at the time was like, "You going to cut her? Are you going to cut her? Is it going to leave a scar?" And I said, am I a belly dancer? What is the problem here?
No, I'm vulnerable about the future of the children, the future of mine and the future of the generation of my children.
I want to have nude pictures taken.
Of you?
Yes,
Yeah,
but
we
without
had that
showing my private parts. I want to put it in my front room. And they said, you can't do that. People will be embarrassed when they came into your house. I said, well, it's my body and it's my front room.
All the things that we do, what is the purpose of it?
I just realized that I was more trusting before I was 6.
So many women, they just feel like I have to cook for my husband, I have to breastfeed my children, I have to pick them from school.
Because society expects
Then you
them
go
to.
home and you cry and you stop your career, you can't do anything, then you blame everybody. You took that choice.
Are you ready to party right from the comfort of your TV screen? The Rundown's here to save the day. From freshly baked videos to the classics to the youngins and dope conversations, all in one chart. We got you covered. Just tune in to The Rundown every Friday, 10:30 p.m. West African time. The Rundown. Let's turn it up.
The process to alter Nigeria's national revenue allocation formula has begun. Benue State Governor Samuel Ortom is now advocating, a change in how revenue is shared amongst the federal government, states and local government. We've invited the public affairs analyst, Mr. Nick Agule, to shed more light on this with us. Good morning, Mr. Agule.
Good morning. Thank you for having me this morning.
All right. I want to lay out the facts first of all. Presently, Nigeria's allocation formula is 52.63% for the state, for the federal government. And we also have 26.72% for states and 20.6% for the local government areas. Now, this formula is what has been in use since the 90s. So do you think it's time for a review, or we're just fine?
Thank you very much for that question. To be honest, my view is that we should not even be talking about revenue allocation. Because where is this revenue coming from? The revenue is being derived principally from the oil wells in the Niger Delta and the taxation being raised from federally collected taxes. And we shouldn't have this hidden bottle economy where the two tiers of government, the state and the local government, are looking up to their mother, the federal government, to breastfeed them every month. Agreed that if a mother breastfeeds children, it gets to a point where the children are able to fend for themselves. And Nigeria is 60 years old. And we have these states that have been in existence from 60 years, from 40. I think the youngest of our states should be like 30 years old. How can a mother still be breastfeeding a 30-year-old person? This democracy that we copy from the United States of America, there is no revenue sharing by the federal government or the United States. So we want to copy a system of government, but unfortunately and tragically too, we decided to copy left instead of copying right. The United States don't share revenue. Joe Biden does not share revenue to any governor or county in the United States. They generate their own revenue. It will interest Nigerians to know that in the United States, whose democracy we copy, it is the state and local government that send money to the center, and not the other way around as we are practicing. In Nigeria today, in all the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT, every state has been endowed with enough resources that if the governors and local government chairmen are not lazy and they look inward to unlock the value embedded in their state, nobody will be talking about looking to Abuja for money. This is my view about this matter.
All right. Mr. Agule, well, since we currently have, the current format that we're working with, until we're able to achieve, a change in format and let states now start to depend solely on what they can generate, I want us to, first of all, look at what we currently, have closely. Why does it feel like regardless of how much these states get every month, it's still not enough to achieve what they need? Because they still are seeking, more funds. You still see states lobbying for loans from, outside the country even. You still see states seeking grants, to finance themselves better. In 2020, a state like Akwa Ibom received about 146 billion naira from the federal government. The Delta State, I think, received about 186 billion from the federal government, and it still doesn't seem to be enough. So would you say that this is because of mismanagement of funds, or the state really just needs more money to be able to function?
This is the brutal truth. The brutal truth is that there is no state in Nigeria that depends on federal allocation that is going to develop. It's impossible. If you check what is happening, when the federally allocated funds get to the state pay salaries, pay costs of running government, and state officials make away with what is left. And that is what, year in, year out, we are having expectations of development, having expectations of seeing government working, having expectations of seeing better schools, better healthcare, better roads, better water coming into our homes, and it's not happening. And it has not happened. Look, we started this current democracy in 1999. So for most states, they either have their third governor or in some states even fourth governor. So you have 3 people who have come into the governor, depending on federal allocation. They made electoral promises. Every year they make budgets, but still the states are not developing. I mean, it is said that it is only a madman that keeps doing the same thing and expecting different results. The states simply need to use what is coming from the center to unlock the values embedded in their own state. You spoke about Governor Otom, and Governor Otom is my governor. I am for Benue, and I can tell you that the biggest resource of Benue State is the fertile land with a good climate to match. What has Governor Otom done to unlock value in the agricultural space in his 6 years in office? He's done nothing. He drives around, he looks at the fertile land, right, fallow, but it doesn't strike him. That is where the money is. Because if Benue mechanizes and begins to cultivate the soil, money will be coming from the United States to buy food, will be coming from Europe to buy food, from Australia, money will be coming from all over the world into Benue to buy food. And that is when we'll be talking about government having enough money to develop the state.
Mr. Agule.
For so long as Governor Otto carries on like a cashier, going to the federal government to get allocation, come and pay salaries that he's not even paying. He's owing salary, he's owing pension, he's owing contractors. You can see that this money is not going to be enough. So in 2023, Nigerians have to look carefully. Any candidate standing for the position of governor or local government chairman, or even Nigeria as a country, that has no idea as how they will look inward to generate value and develop their state, you give them a vote, and the same situation is going to continue. As we're discussing today. The money comes from Abuja, and it's not enough for them.
Mr. Agule, I need to ask you this question. Do you think Nigeria's current political structure allows for such autonomy of states? Or do you think we will need that restructuring that we all keep talking about?
Let me answer your question in 2 parts. Yes, Nigeria needs restructuring. And when I mean restructuring, I mean that the federal government has to release majority of the 68 items on the exclusive list of our constitution. The federal government should not have more than 8 items on the exclusive list. What should be on the exclusive list should be defense, foreign policy, economy, like currency issue, because we have to issue one currency, Those are the kind of things that should be on the exclusive list of Nigeria's constitution. The rest of the items on the constitution should be devolved to the state and local government. These are governments that are closest to the people. When we call ourselves the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it's a scam. We are not running a federal government. We're not running a federal system of government. We are running a unitary system of government. So how can we call ourselves a federal republic and we are in actual fact running a unitary system of government? So as far as the structuring is concerned, that is my mind about it. But let me now answer your second question. You are saying even in the current structure, are the states handicapped in terms of unlocking value in their states? Because every state in Nigeria, like I said, is blessed. It's either they have land for agriculture, they have mineral resources in the ground to be tapped, or they have tourism potential. Nigeria is blessed all round. Can the state unlock value even with the current structure that we have? And the answer is a capital yes. We're discussing Governor Tom. What stops Governor Tom from mechanizing the agriculture in Benue? Nothing, nothing. The federal government will not stop him. Nothing stops him. He has all the powers to till the soil in Benue and bring in value from countries abroad coming to buy food. So pounds, dollars, everything will be coming to Benue to buy food. That is when Governor Tom will develop Benue State. And this applies to every other state in Nigeria.
Mr. Gule, you mentioned earlier that in the next elections, citizens should, or the electorate, should look out for governors or candidates who have ideas that can, unlock these potentials. I wanted to quickly also mention that, these ideas, are very, very many, and campaign promises, can be sweeter than sugar sometimes. But it's what happens after they get into power that is next. So I want to, get your view on what makes governors in Nigeria so lazy. What makes them get into that position and completely lose interest in internally generated revenue and looking out for ways that they can boost that revenue? And how can the electorate ensure that they don't continue to allow such characters get into office?
Thank you for the word you have used, lazy. And that is exactly what these guys are. These guys are lazy. All the governors, except for a few, and local government chairmen in Nigeria are lazy. And the reason they are lazy is because there is a big mama called the federal government who is breastfeeding them every month through the Federal Accounts Allocation Committee, sending them billions of naira monthly. Look, as I'm here, if I was guaranteed that my father would be sending me a check of 10 million every month for all the days of my life, I could probably not work. I could probably not do anything to generate income for myself. And this is what is the problem. That we copy democracy from America, but we are running it in our own way. If you buy a car, you have to run the car in accordance with the manufacturer specification. You cannot buy a car and the manufacturer says, start using the brake to try to move forward and the truck to slow down. This is what is happening to Nigeria. We copy the democracy that says the local council and states should generate revenue and send to the center. Our own is that we are now using the center to send money to the state and local government. The opposite direction isn't going to work for us. It's either we go and fashion our own system of government But if it is this American old, we either operate it the way the Americans are doing it, or we are lost. Now, let me now take the second part of your question. How do Nigerians know who will meet up with their promises? 2023 elections are coming. We have so many people in my state, Benue. We have more than 100 individuals that have come forward saying they want to be governor. How can the electorate filter between those who have their eyes on their location and those who really want to develop the state or working value? The simple answer is the electorate needs to look at pedigree. They need to look at track record. They need to see what these people have done in the past. Elections should be on what the people have done in the past and not what they are promising.
Yeah, but
if a man who never successfully ran anything, who never has a track record of running anything successfully, is promising heaven and earth, you know that that man is not going to give what he does not have. So the electorate need to look at what these candidates have done in the past. And there's enough history for them to use.
Yeah, but Ms. Agule, I want you to just quickly remember, and apologies that we're moving away from the discussion on states and now talking about the electoral process. But I think that one of the challenges is the fact that we have a seemingly flawed electoral process. And, if you do not get, parties picking the right candidates, you can't really make this selection that you're referring to. Because it's really who is on the ballot that determines who gets voted for. So there is that, but even after the elections, when these people get into power, there's still the need for people, the citizens, to be able to make stronger demands of their governors. The people of Benue State should be able to remind Governor Tom of how much he received from the federal government, in 2020 and since the time that he's been there, and also how much he's been able to generate as internally generated revenue since the time that he's been in that position, and remind him that he has absolutely no excuse to be demanding more money when he's not been able to show working.
Thank you very much for that question. What you are saying is actually up. You see, democracy has pillars. These pillars must be in place to support democracy to run very well. And one of the pillars is the sanctity of the electoral process. You also have the independence of the judiciary. You have the rule of law. You have the independence of the three arms of government, the executive, legislature, the judiciary. Without this ingredient, democracy isn't going to work. And this is why part of the problem. And we're discussing economy. But this economy will not work if the electoral process is not producing the right managers of the economy. And this is why it is that President Muhammadu Buhari is not yet placing the electoral bill into law. It was passed probably before the National Assembly went on recess. The petroleum industry bill and the electoral bill. The president has quickly attempted to the petroleum industry bill. Why is he not taking to the electoral bill so that we can have a better process that will win those who don't have anything to offer, they have only their eyes on federal allocation, from becoming governor, local government chairman, or even the president. And now you have made another solid point. And that point is, even if the electoral process, as flawed as it is, produces governors and local government chairmen or even president, the citizens have been given humongous power in the Constitution to checkmate those elected to lead them. Nigeria has a unique situation where we only in the democracy of the nation every 4 years, in a 4-year cycle. We elect people, they are not governing well, and we are hoping for the next election. No. The Constitution has provided us the powers to follow through the governance process and be participants in the democracy of the nation. There are actually, to me, there are three forms of government. You have the executive, the legislature, the judiciary, and the people. And the people have their power. Now, let me also address another matter. Granted that the electoral process is flawed, and the president is developing cold feet from signing a new bill, if we come to 2023, and President Buhari has not attempted the new electoral bill into law, what option do we have as Nigerians? We have two options. It's either we sit at home, not come out to vote, or we come out to vote. Unfortunately, option one, sitting at home, will only ensure continuity of the misgovernance that we are all crying about. The only hope that we stand a chance of something changing is if Nigerians come out to vote, to vote. There were 30 million votes in the presidential election the last election was
2019, yes.
Yeah? 30 million votes in 2019 presidential election. What if we have 50 million, 80 million, 90 million Nigerians group out in 2023? I'm sure that number will overwhelm the process, and Nigerians will be able to get leaders that they deserve. So when people sit at home and expect change, change is not going to happen. So even as flawed as the electoral process is, it is the big chance for us to have any change from the current trajectory that we are on. And Nigerians must approach INEC offices to begin to register, get their voter card, be ready for the battle in 2023.
Okay, Mr. Agule, at the beginning of the show, you mentioned that the focus of states should be on revenue generation, right? And you mentioned sources of that generation, which should be oil and non-oil sources, including taxation. So I want us to take the example of the River State's case. So River State actually took the FIRS to court, basically challenging who had the constitutional duty to receive a VAT, value-added tax in the state. And the court actually favored River State government, saying that they have the right to collect taxes. But just yesterday, we have a statement from the FIRS Director of Communications warning residents of River State to continue to pay their taxes to the FIRS or face penalties because they have, gone ahead for a stay of execution on that matter. So really, where does this leave us? Where the River State government, won that judgment, and it all seemed like, oh, this is something other states should emulate. So, states can go ahead and generate revenue internally, collect their taxes, so that they can be able to do the things that states should do for their citizens. But now that, we have a case where the FIRS is challenging that judgment, appealing that judgment, where does that leave us regarding revenue generation for states and allocation?
Let me answer your question in two parts. The first part is that we are running a democracy where the rule of law has to be supreme. So the River State government has won the case. If indeed the FIRS has got a stay of execution, they got a judgment for a stay of execution, the judgment of the lower court, then River State indigents will have to obey the ruling of the court by continuing to pay taxes to FIRS. But if FIRS is yet to get that stay of execution, it then means that the judgment of the court as obtained at River State is subsisting. And River State indigents will be breaking the law if they continue to pay taxes to the FIRS. So that is one point. The other part is that, what is my view about states collecting their taxes? And my answer is yes. States should be collecting their taxes. You see an anomalous situation where there are some states in the north, they have said they have Sharia. They will not allow the sale of cigarettes, alcohol, and things like that. Okay? Then you have states in the south, like Lagos, Rivers, and Co. They are selling alcohol, cigarettes, and all those things. And the VAT that is being generated from the sale of alcohol is coming into a central pot held by the FIRS. And then the FIRS now divides this VAT. It gives it to the states in the north who don't allow the sale of alcohol. How does that work? We can't be in a federation and things like that are happening. So every state should be empowered to, VAT is a consumer tax. If you go to the United States, from where we copy the democracy, it is the state and local countries that collect consumer tax. It's the state and local government. You don't expect the federal government to come down and be collecting small things as consumer tax. We should have a federal government that is dealing with bigger things, bigger fishes like defense, foreign policy, and those kind of things. So River State government is right in the steps that they have taken. I believe that judgment should be subsisting in all the states of the federation. Let all the states begin to collect their local taxes. That's my view on it.
All right.
All right, Mr. Nico Goulet, Public Affairs Analyst, we appreciate your perspectives on the program this morning. Have a great day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, up next, we'll be taking a look at the ranking of universities in Nigeria and side by side her global counterparts after the break. Stay with us.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement, that is a ticking time bomb. We are a blessed people with diverse culture and highly cerebral minds who have a lot to say. And yes, we are talking. It is important we drive the right conversation that informs, inspires, influences thoughts and action. If we say there's beauty in our diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture. We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation as we are the hope for the future. Yesterday's conversations shape today. What are you saying to shape your tomorrow? We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
much, saying good morning once again and welcome back to the breakfast here on Plus TV Africa. The conversation continues this morning, and now we're moving away from states demanding high allocation from the federal government to a ranking of universities across the world, where Nigerian universities were ranked outside the first 1,000, and as set for a few private universities here in the country. We're once again joined by Nick Agule, who's also going to be speaking about this. Mr. Agule, welcome once again.
Thank you very much.
All right, now let's move the conversation to education, which, of course, over time we've spoken about demanding better funding for our educational sector and, what the sector completely demands. Even in the news this morning, ASU is, complaining of, once again, it seems like the government reneging on its promise for a revitalization fund. Is this in any way shocking when you see that no Nigerian university made the top 1,000 in the world? Mr. Gule, can you hear us? All right, seems we're going to have to reconnect with him. Jide Benson, can you hear us? Oh, Jide Johnson, I beg your pardon.
Good morning. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Thanks for joining
us. I can hear
us.
you.
Okay, all right. So let's take the question to you before Mr. Gule gets back with us. Is it in any way shocking that there's no Nigerian university among the top 1,000 in the world?
Well, it shouldn't be shocking to anybody in the first instance. If you have to rank Nigeria as a nation among the Committee of Nations, where will you rank Nigeria? That shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. How many times have ASU gone on strike in Nigeria in the last 25 years? If we begin to in the last 30 years, how many times has ASU gone on strike? Do we have university going on strike in other parts of the world like we do in Nigeria? What is the diversity in terms of the faculty of your institution? There are basic criteria that are used to rank this university. I saw something on video yesterday when somebody was insisting that the VC of LASU must surely be an indigene, where you have a situation whereby Ilorin people, and we say that the VC of University of Ilorin, Federal University, must come from Ilorin. Or the Edo people will say the VC of UNIBEN must come from Edo State. There's no party in the world where you sacrifice meritocracy for
tribe or ethnicity.
And the rest.
Yeah.
Hello? For federal character and the rest of it. So academic institutions are noted for excellence. If you are good enough, you are qualified to head any particular position. It is not based on federal character. It is not based on state of origin and the rest of it. So we are acknowledging that in the past we used to have foreigners being part and parcel of the faculty of our institution. How many foreigners do you have in the faculty of our institution? How many Africans do we have in the faculty of our institution? So our university that are meant to be a universe, a city that is made up of the universe, has become so narrow-minded that it has become the enclave of some ethnic jingoists.
Mr. Johnson, Mr. Johnson, just before we move to Nika Guleb, I want you to to look at this. That's really about the internal politics that has also affected the universities. Yes, I would agree that might be one of the challenges stopping these universities from growth. But there have to be other factors that have limited the ability of Nigerian universities and its educational system to blossom over time. Aside the internal politics, let's look at the funding, the infrastructure, the interest the government has in education. Some of all those factors, haven't they been big enough?
Yeah, you talk about university are ranked also based on research and innovation. Research and innovation. Now, how many corporate organizations in Nigeria makes available resources for the university system to embark on research and innovation? How many foundations do we have, like the Gates Foundation? How many chairs have been endowed? So we should not limit. I just took the aspect of internal politics, which is influenced by external factor. But the society at large, how many people makes available resources in terms of funding, in terms of endowing chairs that makes fund available for people? We just appoint professors in other part of the client, once you appoint a professor, there is a fund that is attached to that professorship. But in a part of the world, the funds are not available. There are no resources for research and innovation. And if you are not engaged in research and innovation, you cannot be ranked among institutions globally. So what contributions do we make to knowledge? What contributions do we make to the larger society, to the Nigerian society? Because there are three things which you must be involved in as an academic institution: is teaching, research, and community development. Teaching, research, and community development. So if we use that, our focus has always been on teaching. Research is tied to you getting funding. What research are we making? The output of your research is what you use to bring about changes in the society. So it's made up of a lot of factors, which is outside of, we expect government to fund. It is not government that funds Harvard. It is not government that funds Oxford. It is the private sector and the corporate sector, because they are beneficiaries of the research and innovation of the university system. That funds Harvard, that funds Oxford, that funds Cambridge. So until we have a departure from our university system, relying on government funding and using government funding as an excuse not to do their primary function, I've explained the three primary functions of academic institutions to you. Until we do that, and until corporate Nigeria becomes part and parcel of the academic community, whereby the researches that our students are conducting are not just placed on the shelf, those research are translated into ideas that are implemented by corporate organizations to bring about meaningful development, then we begin to have this problem we are having with regards to
Mr.
global
Julie Johnson. Let's bring in Mr. Nika Gule there to continue his commentary on the state of Nigeria's education system, and maybe even follow that up on how universities can maybe even be self-funded or generate more funds for growth. Mr. Gule.
Thank you very much. Sorry, the line dropped. Incidentally, I was a university teacher. My first job was as a university teacher. I graduated from the University of Benin, and I was retained as a graduate assistant. So after my NYT, I came back to teach, and I saw my mates who were in banks. The new generation bank started to spring up in the 90s. And they were earning like 10 times, 20 times more than what I was earning in the classroom. And what I did was I left the system to go and look for money as well. And this is one of the problems we're having with education in Nigeria. Because elsewhere, government place emphasis on two key services to the citizenry: education and healthcare. And if you notice, in most of the developed world, these are the two sectors that the government does not even release to the private sector. Like you go to the UK, the government is funding education and healthcare. Education is free at all levels to A levels. Healthcare is free at all levels: primary, secondary, tertiary. So Nigerians are the ones who have voted that our education is not of high quality. Because it's not even the global ranking. Nigerians have voted. And what do I mean? Every parent in Nigeria is desirous of their child or ward studying abroad. If they are studying in Nigeria, it's because perhaps it doesn't have enough resources to send the child abroad. So we ourselves are confirming to the whole world that our educational sector is not high quality enough for us, and we are choosing to go elsewhere. And the reason we have come to this point is I lay the blame on the doorstep of the government and the universities themselves. Number one, the government is not funding education enough. The entire federal government budget of Nigeria has education allocation of less than $1 billion. $1 billion for education of 200 million people. Check out the United Kingdom. Over 100 billion pounds for education. So in comparison, you see that we're not funding education enough. Number two, even with that 1 billion, the government is setting up new universities every day instead of improving on the ones that we have. So we are now increasing the number of vice chancellors. Because if you have a vice chancellor, a government decides to expand his university to take on more courses or more students, it is still one vice chancellor. But when you now go and set up a new university, you now have a second vice chancellor to pay, a second registrar, a whole gamut of administrative costs that are going into operational expenses instead of actually going to where they are needed to get classrooms to standard, pay teachers well, support research. I also place the blame on the feet of the universities themselves. Elsewhere, universities are generating humongous money from research. For instance, you hear of AstraZeneca, Oxford COVID-19 vaccine. It's a university that partnered with a pharmaceutical company to develop that vaccine. And the university is now reaping billions of dollars. Now that the vaccine is being sold all over the world. We have universities in Nigeria that are doing no research. No innovation, no invention, nothing. We're just producing professors who are just writing papers but nothing tangible to show for it. If universities are actually bringing in innovation, making inventions, the corporate world can buy into that. And that will make universities to become more solid financially to look after their needs. We're not having that. So this is my first views on this subject we're discussing.
All right, just to quickly also share, I'm just seeing this now. It says, this is for 2020, for the most recent fiscal year, ended June 30th, 2020, the return on the Harvard endowment was 7.3% and the value stood at $41.9 billion. It says the endowment was also distributed $2 billion towards the university's operating budget, supporting financial aid, research funds, faculty chairs, and more. Just to paint a picture of what, one university is able to generate, annually, and even more. Mr. Jide Johnson, I want you to look at, vice chancellors now and the operation, that goes into a university here in Nigeria, Unilag, University of Jos, University of Benin, any of them. Where would you say the vice chancellors themselves are failing and the operational structure of the universities in Nigeria are failing woefully?
Let me just correct one impression. I'm Dr. Johnson, but I don't like to be addressed as Dr. Johnson. I like to be simply addressed as Judy Johnson. Well, with respect to our university system, how can a university have a business school, and the business school wants to produce graduates to go into the business world to generate funds, and the university itself cannot raise money to run its own program? You see, we have to think outside of the box, and if university can't generate funds, internal funds to run their operation, how would they train students that will go into the marketplace or the public sphere to generate funds for the running of this institution? If you put all the blame squarely on government, which sector in Nigeria is getting adequate funding? Is it health sector? Is it educational sector? Or is it road and infrastructure? So the thing is that it's for the university system to begin to look inward, to practice what they preach. How can a medical school, for example, if someone should start a private hospital, like a co-hospital, some people started a co-hospital, they generate funds. How can LASU be self-sufficient? How should Lagos State University Teaching Hospital be expecting government funding after government has established it? They are getting patients and they are getting all of this. So it is about us putting a responsibility. If you want to be a vice chancellor, you should come up with a template of self-sufficiency. If you cannot run the university system based on the funds you can generate, you are not fit to be a vice chancellor. The same thing, look, when people talk about government is not funding, look at the resources JAM, a regulatory body for tertiary institution admission, is generating. Now, the funding that JAM is generating Should that funding be returned to federal coffers or should it be taken to the university system? So there are things that we need to do in terms of reform and in terms of looking inward. Cambridge, Oxford, Yale do not go cap in hand to their various government to look for funds. They generate funding through the alumni association. They generate funding through private partnership, partnering with corporate organizations. And I've asked this question. I don't want to begin to call names. People have made money from this country. If I ask you, how many chair have corporate Nigeria endowed in academic institutions in Nigeria? How many chair? Now, professorial appointments are tied to research funds. But you know how we do professorial appointment in Nigeria? We do professorial appointment because somebody published a certain number of papers that die on the shelf of scholars, but that do not go into the marketplace on the public sphere for people. Research that are not actionable, but they are just theoretical-based research. And until we begin to look inward and look outside of the box, we will not make any meaningful progress. How can universities not generate funds to run their school? I don't seem to understand that.
Okay.
I can't.
Away from the funding now, I want us to quickly look at how the state of insecurity in Nigeria is affecting our educational system. Take a look at the University of Jos. You know, it's been shut down now because of that insecurity in the northern part of Nigeria. We know what the statistics are saying. So regarding insecurity, what really can we say should be the way forward? Because there's a question I've asked repeatedly on the breakfast. What really should be the outcome? Is it to shut down schools because, you know, to prevent students from being kidnapped? When schools are now eventually shut down, what really progress can we make?
The schools are in a community. We shut down the communities. The schools are in a community. Will you shut down the community? The school is in a state. Will you shut down the state? You see, we always approach issues with a knee-jerk approach. Rather than look for concrete solution to solving the problem.
That's the question, Mr. Jide Johnson. What should be the solution to safeguarding schools?
That's where I'm going. Now, there are security agencies. The first responsibility of any meaningful government is to protect the life and properties of its citizenry. There's a police commissioner in Plateau State. There is a director of DSS in Plateau State. There is a military formation in Plateau State. The question you ask is, how do we justify the security vote of the Plateau State governor? How do we justify the security vote of the local government chairman in Plateau State? How do we justify the funding, the police commission in Plateau State is using it? You see, until we hold people accountable, when security issues happen like that, have you ever, has anybody, I'm asking you, resigned? Those that are involved in security apparatus of this country, have they resigned? That on the account of their failure to provide security, have you seen anybody who resigned? Has anybody been held culpable? No, it's as business as usual. So what we do is, okay, we deploy the police commissioner, or we deploy the people that are in charge of the security in such places, and we bring other people there, and we continue with it. All right. This knee-jerk approach will not solve the problem. Let's hold people accountable. You have a national security advisor. What is he doing?
All right, Jide
You have
Johnson.
the chief of army staff. You have people that are involved, but we are not holding them accountable.
All right, Jide Johnson, let's pause there. Nick Agule, I'm going to let you finish up, you know, and if you can do this in a minute because we're out of time. I want you to speak on what, or if it is necessary to celebrate the likes of the University of Ibadan, which is ranked 1,196. We also have the Obafemi Awolowo University, you know, which also made it, you know, on that ranking, University of Lagos and University of Nigeria. I think Covenant University, you know, further down. Is there anything to celebrate with regards, you know, them being in those positions? Or, you know, would you also say, you know, that there's something they're doing different?
There's definitely something that they are doing different, which I believe when such rankings come out, it needs to be analyzed by the committee of vice chancellors and also individual universities, try and figure out how they are going to improve on their performance. so that their ranking will be better. And I side very much with the comments that have been made by my colleague on the panel today, that there has to be consequence management. Vice Chancellor's tenure is 5 years. He has to have a blueprint on how he's going to develop the university. And he has to be ranked on that blueprint after year 1, year 2. And if he's not performing, then he should be sacked. If he's sacked, the next Vice Chancellor will know that his job depends on his performance. And not just that he will sit in office for 5 years, do his tenure and move. So until we have to have consequence management in Nigeria, humanity is not going to give up anything.
All right.
Humanity only operates better in a consequence management environment.
All right, Nika Gule and Jide Johnson, thank you both for joining us and being a part of our conversations this Tuesday morning. Wish you a great week ahead.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. And this is where we will be wrapping up.
Yes, just to clarify, actually, Covenant University isn't down. It's actually the second ranked.
Oh, further down than 1,000, that's what I meant.
Second ranked in Nigeria. Yeah, so yes, that's where we draw the curtains here on The Breakfast. Thank you very much for being a part of our day. Good morning. I am Anetta Felix.
Remember, you could catch up on our social media platforms. It's simply at PlusTvAfrica, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and our YouTube channel. Also at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Osao Gie Ogbonwa.
Bye-bye.
Hello and welcome. It's Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime. Nimasa This Week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there's regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development, and ship registration.
NIMASA This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
The suspect equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them. If you no talk, they go beat you. Now 2,500 and they pay.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
Thanks for joining us on News Brief on Plus TV Africa. I am Osaogi Ogbonwa. The National Industrial Court has directed the National Association of Resident Doctors to suspend its ongoing strike. The doctors had commenced the strike on August 1st over irregular payment of salaries, among other issues. Efforts by the House of Representatives to mediate between the federal government and the NARD ended in a deadlock. The federal government then instituted a suit against the association. Ruling on Monday, the judge asked all parties in the suit to suspend all forms of hostilities and maintain status quo, and that's pending the hearing and determination of the motion on notice. The judge further ordered that a hearing notice be issued and other processes be served on the defendant, including the originating summons. He also added that the proof of service should be kept in the case file before the next adjourned date. Tagema adjourned the matter to September 15th for a hearing on the motion on notice. At least 50 people have been abducted from Maradun local government in Zamfara state. Mohammed Shehu, the state PPRO, confirmed the incident, saying 4 residents were also killed during the attack. Shehu said the gunmen came in large number when they invaded the community around midnight on Sunday. The police spokesman said tactical operatives have been deployed to the community. We gathered that Yakubu El-Kana, the Zamfara Commissioner of Police, has ordered an immediate search and rescue operation for the victims. In the wake of this latest attack, the Commissioner has urged the residents to remain calm. And Governor Sheyi Makinde has hosted the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahaya, who paid the governor a courtesy visit. The governor commended the Nigerian Army for their support and cooperation with the present administration. He also appealed to the Chief of Army Staff to help Oyo State improve on border towns where Oyo State shares boundaries with other states. And also in the news, the House of Representatives wants the Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, Mele Kyari, to appear before its Committee on Finance on Wednesday. During the committee meeting on the 2022 to 2024 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework and Fiscal Strategy paper, the lawmakers frowned at what they term continuous disregard for Parliament. They also turned back the representative of the NNPC boss.
When the CG was complaining, I told him that I heard from the CBN governor saying that Naira will be devalued soon, and now it's even devalued. So you should look at the value of the Naira that is going down and give upward review. This is what I want to tell you, and I will tell you been passed. The carbonated drinks have been signed into law by the president. There are so many ways they will get revenue now, better than last year. And now we are in the middle of the year, see what they have generated just because of the devaluation of this naira.
In Nigeria or out of Nigeria?
He's in Nigeria, sir.
So if he's writing a letter to National Assembly, he cannot sign directly by himself, he has to ask somebody to sign for him. This letter is, your appearance will not be taken today. We have to, the GMDNMPC should appear before us on Wednesday 11 a.m.
Excuse this representative and allow GMD himself to appear before us tomorrow.
An Ebonyi-based civil society organization is accusing Governor Dave Umahi of misappropriating 4.5 billion naira belonging to the state. At a press briefing in Abuja, the executive director of PlusTvAfrica, Darlington Onwe, also alleges threats to his life for exposing massive fraud in the state. Onwe says Umahi has a history of lacking in due process, transparency, and accountability.
In the old ESCO chamber of the State Government House, Governor Umahi issued a Zenith bank check worth 14 million naira to some of his serving and former political aides and wives, which what their take home ranges from 1.5 million for each persons. Now, more than ever, we are highly concerned about the sincerity of the state government in the disbursement of the 3 billion naira NSAS Youth Fund, and also what had happened to the 1.5 billion naira Ebonyi State Autonomous Community Development Fund of 2019. As a civil society organization that is committed to the promotion of accountable democratic governance, we have been asking, and yet we are still asking the state government to account for the fund totaling 4.5 billion. That is the 3 billion Youth SME Fund and 1.5 billion naira.
Still in the news, 135 deaths have been recorded from the COVID-19 third wave in Lagos State. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu disclosed this on Monday while giving an update on how the state has fared in combating the pandemic, especially the deadlier third wave. PlusTvAfrica's State House correspondent Love Ikuku Oyedokun tells us more in this report.
Lagos State is the epicenter of COVID-19 in Nigeria. The third wave has further put Lagos in the spotlight. The state governor reveals that the positivity rate of every 100 tests conducted currently stands at 12.1% compared to 1.1% at the end of June 2021. At the end of July 2021, it was 7%.
The last time we had this press conference, we were suspecting I was getting about 7% then. Now it's about 12.1%. From a 1.1% in June of 2021, meaning that for every 100 tests that we do, we get about 12 people that are infected.
Governor Sanwo-Olu attributes the trend seen in the third wave to non-adherence to the health protocols designed to mitigate the pandemic. He reminds Lagosians of individual responsibility to fight and defeat the virus. He pleads with citizens to have themselves tested in any of the COVID-19 public test facilities and get vaccinated free of charge.
We've received just a little over 300,000 right now, and I'm happy to announce that from Wednesday, on the 25th, we'll commence the vaccination at over 150 centers across the state.
On inbound passengers, the governor discloses that since the commencement of isolation of passengers from red-listed countries, Lagos State's response has successfully quarantined 4,448 passengers. This figure was at 19th of August 2021. Also, 58 have been identified who tested positive to the virus despite a negative test on arrival. He warns that severe sanctions await anyone who flouts the protocol of the federal government and state COVID-19 pandemic laws.
As at 21st yesterday, Lagos had identified over 5,998 persons, and we have successfully isolated about 4,500 of them from the red listed countries, meaning that sadly about 1,000 people have also absconded.
With a collective desire and joint efforts, we all can see the end of the virus.
Still in the news, the Western Naval Command on Friday confiscated 4 trucks used for illegal bunkering around the Idimo area of Lagos. The flag officer commanding, Rear Admiral Jason Gbasa, says the trucks will be forfeited to the federal government. PlusTvAfrica's correspondent, Destiny Momo, has more.
In recent times, vandalism, illegal bunkering and oil theft have led to loss of revenues to the Nigerian government. The oil firms that own the assets from which these crimes are committed are not spared too. But the Western Naval Command is not resting either. The flag officer commanding, Rear Admiral Jason Gbasa, is here at the site of an illegal operation at Idimo area of Lagos. Apparently, the bunkerers saw the men of the Nigerian Navy approaching. The culprits absconded, leaving their trucks and appliances behind. He speaks to newsmen on the development.
This is a result of a painstaking work following credible intelligence we received for some weeks now. Repeatedly, we've been on this case, but yesterday we set up and all we discovered is 4 trucks came into this area. Striking thing is that within a built-up area like this, for people to have the effrontery to come and carry out illegal acts.
The effrontery to carry out such illegal activities against the mandate of Operation Awase in a built-up area is appalling.
These trucks are forfeited to the federal government, but on our own part, we'll continue to pursue the perpetrators, at least to know those who are sponsoring this illegal acts.
Loaded trucks have been moved back to base for follow-up investigations. Then they'll be handed over to the appropriate agencies. Plans are also on ground to get them forfeited to the federal government.
For a group of people to rip the nation of such descent free without any direct investment on it.
Gbasa is grateful to the people of the community for providing the intelligence needed to halt the illegal activity. Their collaboration in pursuit of perpetrators of these crimes has been very helpful. Recently, Western Naval Command hosted the U.S. and Spanish naval ships to strengthen bilateral relations and enhance maritime security in Nigeria. Hopefully, these moves will take Nigeria closer to reducing these crimes to the barest minimum. Destiny Momo for PlusTvAfrica.
Not less than 2 million citizens have forwarded their online applications to INEC to participate in the ongoing voter registration exercise. In June, the Commission launched a portal where Nigerians can register or request to update their voter information. This is before they complete the process physically at designated centers. In a statement on Monday, Festus Okoye, Chairman, INEC Information and Voter Education Committee, said the number of new registrants has risen to over 2 million. INEC also said the number of completed registrations at fiscal centers has reached 430,363. According to the data released by the Commission, youths account for the highest number of registrants. The data also shows that Osun State is the lead for online registrations. And veteran visual artist Yusuf Grillo has been confirmed dead due to COVID-19 complications. His son, Boyega Grillo, confirmed the 86-year-old died in the early hours of yesterday. Grillo is considered one of Nigeria's outstanding and academically trained painters. You're still watching News Brief on PlusTvAfrica, and the news will be back after this break.
politics has helped shape the decision of the polity, from conspiracy theories to good old-fashioned comic politics.
These are the results of tomorrow's election. Okay, you have it already, Abi.
I am not hungry. If I need appointment, all I need to do is to start praising government.
Plus, politics will fill the polls of the country, from friends to frenemies, even strange bedfellows to clones and stooges. We go beyond the rhetorics and the drama to analyze the story behind the story.
Let anybody come and say.
The moment we stop having charlatans occupy political offices, we will curtail hate speech.
Plus Politics, not just another political show. It's about putting you, the citizens, in the know.
Seize it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Buki November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Welcome back, and now to stories in other parts of Africa. Concern is mounting over freedoms in Tunisia, just as President Kais Saied presses ahead with a purge that has seen politicians, judges and businessmen arrested or banned from travel. On July 25th, Saied sacked the government and suspended parliament for 1 month. He cited powers he says were granted by the constitution. He has yet to reveal a roadmap for his decisions, despite repeated demands by political parties in the country. Their claims have sparked a chorus of condemnation, with critics denouncing arbitrary and unjustified measures. But Said offered a stiff response to his critics during a recent visit to the Tunis-Carthage International Airport. And officials in Kenya arrived at the Jomo Kenyatta Airport in Nairobi on Monday to see the first donated doses of Moderna vaccines from the United States, the first time the vaccine was received in the East African country. Principal Secretary of Kenya's Ministry of Health, Susanna Mochache, said that 880,460 doses were delivered.
With this donation of 460 doses of Moderna from the United States government, Kenya will now have received a total of 3.6 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine. Moderna is the second vaccine to be deployed in this country after we started administering AstraZeneca in March this year.
The U.S. government will continue to work with the government of Kenya to bring additional life-saving vaccines to Kenya through COVAX, and we'll continue to do all that we can to build a world that is safer and more secure against the threat of infectious disease.
And also news, in recent years, Central African authorities have placed particular emphasis on the fight against climate change and deforestation by encouraging tree planting. The country aims to plant thousands of hectares of trees this year alone. National leaders, including the head of state, have embraced the activity with a view to attracting the country's youth. Others have taken up tree planting with commercial objectives. The government has initiated a forestry department fund whose objective is to create nurseries of several tree varieties. The seedlings are distributed free of charge to citizens. Years of conflict and neglect have seen Central African Republic's forest and wildlife exploited illegally by poachers. And moving outside Africa now, climate activists blocked traffic near Leicester Square on Monday. They chained themselves to a car and a giant pink table erected in the middle of the street. Police officers from London's Metropolitan Police caught the activist chains and made arrest. The activists from the Extinction Rebellion group want an emergency response from governments and a mass move away from polluting industries. This is to avert the worst scenarios of devastation outlined by scientists. The group, which had earlier rallied at London's Trafalgar Square, targeted the medieval Guildhall over the weekend. And that's the home of the City of London's corporation, which governs the city's historic financial centre. London's police warned on Friday that protests by environmental activists planned for the next 2 weeks would cause disruption across the capital and distract officers from dealing with crime. The International Organization for Migration has launched a flash appeal for $15 million. This appeal is to help Haitian authorities provide temporary shelter, mental health support, and COVID-19 prevention for some 170,000 families left critically vulnerable by the recent earthquake. The earthquake that struck southern Haiti has already, of course, destroyed lots of lives, and IOM has set up bases in the most affected areas and additional hubs in Jeremy, Les Cayes, and Miragone. It is also using satellite imagery to analyze damage and distribute thousands of plastic sheets, hygiene kits, blankets, collapsible jerry cans, and kitchens to those impacted.
Today, the UN Migration Agency, IOM, launched a flash appeal for $15 million to help families impacted by the earthquake. The resources will help Haitian authorities with housing, temporary shelter, mental health support, and COVID-19 prevention for some 170,000 families left critically vulnerable by the recent earthquake that struck southern Haiti. IOM has already set up bases in the most affected areas in additional hubs in Jérémie, La Caille, and Miragoan. It is also using satellite imagery to analyze damage and distribute thousands of plastic sheets, hygiene kits, blankets, collapsible jerry cans, and kitchen to those impacted.
Still outside Africa, President Tsai Ing-wen got vaccinated with Taiwan's first domestically developed COVID-19 vaccine on Monday. This is given her personal stamp of approval as the island begins rolling out the shot, whose approval critics say has been rushed. The Health Ministry last month approved the emergency use of the Medellin Vaccine Biologics Corporation's COVID-19 vaccine. Before now, Tsai had held off using vaccines from Moderna Incorporated or AstraZeneca. Taiwan's main opposition party, the Kuomintang, has mounted a fierce campaign against the shot. They're saying that while it supports domestic vaccines, Medigen's approval has been rushed. Around 40% of Taiwan's 23.5 million people have received at least one shot of either of the 2 doses of AstraZeneca or Moderna vaccines. Fewer than 5% are fully vaccinated. And now to business news. The Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria says the equipment required for addressing challenges in the international airports in Kano and Lagos have arrived Nigeria and are already being installed. FAAN announced this in a statement signed by General Manager Corporate Affairs Henrietta Yakubu. Henrietta Yakubu said an additional 15 security screening machines have been procured for immediate deployments to the General Aviation Terminal and Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos. The authority appeals to all stakeholders to please bear with the authority while the installation would last, as all hands are on deck to ensure speedy completion of the project. To sports news now. The Tokyo Paralympics are starting today, with COVID-19 cases rising in Japan. Around 4,400 athletes from 162 national Paralympic committees will compete in 539 medal events across 22 sports. Delayed by a year because of the pandemic, these will surely be different games to any previous edition. Tokyo is the first city to stage 2 Paralympic Games, having hosted the 1964 edition. And that's it on News Brief. For more, please follow us at PlusTvAfrica on Facebook and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Osao Gie Ogbola. Thanks for watching.
for me, I wanted to change that culture. I didn't believe that until you see a white man or you see a foreigner in the kitchen before you can believe that, you know, good food is going to come out of that kitchen.
You can leverage on each other's spaces and, you know, sell. We believe in Nigeria, right? We believe that Nigeria can get better. We, the youth, are the ones that can make it better.
And my products are proudly made in Nigeria.
Made in Nigeria, showing every Tuesday at 10:30 p.m. and repeats on Saturday at 8:30 a.m.
There has to be a decision point. The way your baby's presenting, we have to rush you in. And my partner at the time was like, "You going to cut her? Are you going to cut her? Is it going to leave a scar?" And I said, "Am I a belly dancer? What is the problem here?"
No, I'm vulnerable about the future of the children, the future of mine and the future of the generation of my children.
I want to have nude pictures taken. Of you? Yes,
Yeah,
but
we
without
had that
showing my private parts. I want to put it in my front room. And they said, "You can't do that. People will be embarrassed when they came into your house." I said, "Well, it's my body and it's my front room."
All the things that we do, what is the purpose of it?
I just realized that I was more trusting before I was 6. So many women, they just feel like I have to cook for my husband, I have to breastfeed my children, I have to pick them from school.
Because society expects
Then you
them
go
to.
home and you cry and you stop your career, you can't do anything, then you blame everybody. You took that choice.
Is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on Plus TV Africa.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.